New month and new books. I don't know what this is. We are coming into June, the middle of the year. So let's look at 10 new fantasy and sci-fi books releasing in the month of June that you should know about. That being said, I'm not sure there's any sci-fi this month on my list. Oh, that's kind of a mix. That's also sci-fi. We're good. There is sci-fi. That intro does work. Coming out on June 3rd, we have Of Monsters and Mainframes. Now, this one was one of those books that I hadn't heard of until I was researching books for this video, but just that title and the cover alone was enough to make me go, I'm interested. This sounds different. I'm intrigued. Spaceships aren't programmed to seek revenge, but for Dracula, Demeter will make an exception. Demeter just wants to do her job, shuttling humans between Earth and Alpha Centauri. Unfortunately, her passengers keep dying, and not from equipment failures, as her AI medical system, Steward, would have her believe. These are paranormal murders, and they began when one nasty ancient vampire decided to bore Demeter and kill all her humans. To keep from getting decommissioned, Demeter must join forces with her own team of monsters. A werewolf, an engineer built from the dead, a pharaoh with otherworldly powers, a vampire with a grudge, a fleet of cheerful spider drones. Together, this motley crew will face down the ultimate evil, Dracula. A sci-fi fantasy book from the perspective of a spaceship that wants to kill Dracula that's killing her passengers? How cool is that? I don't think I've ever heard anything even close to that as a synopsis for a book. This is very bizarre and intriguing and incredibly unique. I think they watched my 10 Things I Want to See More Of in Fantasy book, because this ticks off all the boxes. I mean, it even has a pharaoh in it. It's like they know what I want. I love ancient Egypt. That just sounds so cool. One for the TBR. Coming out on June 5th, we have Bee Speaker, the third book in the War of Dogs, Dogs of War series. That would be a very different series if it was a War of Dogs series. No, Dogs of War series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I swear you blink and that man has another book out. He is incredibly proficient with writing, and they're always really good. Have I mentioned Shroud? Shroud is awesome. Came out in February. You should all read it. But we will look at the synopsis for book 1, and then you'll know if you want to continue on to book 2, and then to book 3, which comes out on June 5th. Oh, it is about dogs, genuinely. Take it back, I was right. A bioengineered dog fights for its life and its right to life. My name is Rex. I am a good dog. Rex is also 7 foot tall at the shoulder, bulletproof, bristling with heavy caliber weaponry, and his voice resonates with subsonics, especially designed to instill fear. With Dragon, Honey and Bees, he's part of a multiform assault pack operating in the lawless anarchy of Campeche, Mexico. A genetically engineered bioform, he is a deadly weapon in a dirty war. All he wants to be is a good dog. And to do that, he must do exactly what Master says, and Master says he's got to kill a lot of enemies. But who exactly are the enemies? What happens when Master is tried as a war criminal? What rights does the Geneva Convention grant weapons? Do Rex and his fellow bioforms even have a right to exist? And what happens when Rex slips his leash? What is this month? There's so many bizarre but awesome sounding books. I had heard of Dogs of War, but I just assumed it was more of a military faction name or something. I didn't realize it was about bioengineered dogs and other animals, I believe. I regret making these videos because it just tops up the TBR to an untoppable pile of TBR-ness. Coming out on June 10th, we have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. Now, obviously, V.E. Schwab is a huge author, so this is a big release, and a lot of the early reviews and thoughts seem to be really, really positive for this one. So let's hop into the synopsis. This is a story about hunger. 1532, Santo Domingo de la Calzada. A young girl grows up wild and wily. Her beauty is only outmatched by her dreams of escape, but Maria knows she can only ever be a prize or a pawn in the games played by men. When an alluring stranger offers an alternate path, Maria must make a desperate choice. She vows to have no regrets. This is a story about love. 1827, London. A young woman lives an idyllic but cloistered life on her family's estate until a moment of forbidden intimacy sees her shipped off to London. Charlotte's tender heart and seemingly impossible wishes are swept away by an invitation from a beautiful widow, but the price of freedom is higher than she could ever have imagined. This is a story about rage. 2019, Boston. College was supposed to be her chance to be something new. That's why Alice moved halfway across the world, leaving her old life behind. But after an out-of-character one-night stand leaves her questioning her past, her present, and her future, Alice throws herself into the hunt for answers and revenge. This is a story about life, how it ends, and how it starts. I love this idea of a trio narrative of these three different characters, completely different locations, completely different time periods, and them all somehow being connected in this overarching story. Very intrigued by this. Coming out on June 11th, we have A Graveyard for Heroes, the second book in the Dreams of Dust and Steel by Michael Michel. Now, we did go over book 1, The Price of Power, just last month, the month before. So I'm not going to go over the synopsis again, but the sequel is dropping now. So if you have started it or you want to start the first book now that the sequel's out, this is a grimdark series. Perfect for fans of A Game of Thrones, The Age of Madness, The Five Warrior Angels, The Broken Empire, and Ash and Sand. So those are some hefty comparison titles. So I imagine it's quite political, very large scale. And it does sound really, really good. And the third book is coming out in January. The cover was just revealed a couple of days ago when this video goes live, so you can check that out as well. Coming out in January. So even if you read book 2, it's not a long wait until book 3. Coming out on June 17th, we have A Chorus of War, the second book in the Last Ballad series by Scott Palmer. Again, because this is a sequel, we will go over the synopsis for book 1, and then if you've read that, you'll know if you want to move on to book 2 or not. James Codane, the last heir of the Northern Throne, was just a young man when the armies of the South murdered his parents and subjugated his lands. He has never forgotten those responsible, nor has he forgiven. He has spent the last 10 years living in isolation with the Feldara, a sacred northern clan of fierce warriors led by the fearless Wolfie, who, still reeling from the loss of her own child, finds new meaning in protecting what only family she has left. Now an ancient order of warlocks has returned to the north, singing dark songs composed of blood magic that null the elements and threaten all that is living. With nature depleted and the southern armies returning to the north, James struggles to embrace the unique power he has long tried to repress. The ability to commune with the spirits of the dead. In the bitter heart of a growing war, with the world dying around them, James and Wolfie desperately seek answers, vengeance, and a way to save the ones they love, no matter the cost. This is such a fun, classic fantasy type setup. It just sounds really good. The reviews I've seen for it have been really, really positive, and there's no better time to hop in with the sequel coming out this month. Coming out on June 19th, we have something a little bit different. The Last Soldier of Nava. According to legend, the soldier drowned entire kingdoms in darkness. Yet, the soldier was only a girl, robbed of her will and raised as a weapon for her power-hungry father. When she awakens years later, freedom takes the form of a hidden life and a new name. Shadow. As war brews and magical dead zones devour the natural world, Shadow is captured and pulled back into court life by her immortal father's new protege, Scarlet, a diabolical woman obsessed with her sister's murder, a murder Shadow herself committed in a past life. Shadow's control over darkness holds the key to restoring the balance of their world, but a serpentine court hides greed, corruption, and her father's new plot to resurrect his fading magic. If she's to survive and save her nation, Shadow will have to hide her past and rely on the woman who captured her, even as they unwind the legends that brought them together and face their growing attraction. This sounds really cool. I like that it is Korean mythology inspired. It's a sapphic fantasy. It has shadow magic, which is something I quite like. And also, I really like the fact that this main character has kind of been this weapon in the past and done all these horrible, horrific events, and she's fallen asleep and she wakes up. It says years later, but I got the impression it was a decent chunk of time. Yeah, is awakened after thousands of years to heal her nation. I really like that. It reminds me a bit of Breath of the Wild, with Link waking up thousands of years later. A lot of fun things you can do with that in the plot and the characterization. Coming out on June 21st, we have While Darkness Gathers by Philip Chase. Now, I cannot find the synopsis for this anywhere. It might not be out yet. However, this is the sequel to Philip Chase's Adan trilogy, the first book being The Way of Adan, which is a classic fantasy that has a bit of a twist, I believe. I've heard that it starts as very classic fantasy and then does some really, really interesting things with that sort of formula and setup. Philip Chase is just awesome. He has a YouTube channel as well. He is a professor of English, which is really cool, and you can really tell in the way he talks about books. It's very analytical, rather scholarly. I'm not sure if you can start with this. You might need to read the Adan trilogy first. However, if you're looking for some classic fantasy type setup with a bit of a twist, definitely check out his work. Coming out on June 24th, we have The Last Vigilant. War between once peaceful nations is on the horizon, and the child of a powerful ally is missing. Now, Holt Hawley, an outcast soldier, has been sent to find a myth. A Vigilant, one of the last survivors of an ancient and powerful order, whose magic could be key to finding the child. But the Vigilance disappeared long ago. No one truly expects him to succeed. Then, in a fabled forest, he stumbles upon a woman who claims to be the last Vigilant. Imelda Drake is wizened and out of practice, and she seems a far-off cry from the heroes of legend, but they will need her powers and each other to survive, for nothing in their kingdom is as it seems. Corrupt soldiers and calculating politicians thwart their efforts at every turn, and there are dark whispers on the wind, threatening the arrival of a primordial and powerful enemy. The Vigilant is not the only myth returning from the dead. This is another one that just seems like a ton of classic fantasy fun. There's so much here that I can just imagine is going to be such a good classic fantasy feeling adventure style narrative, and this idea of hunting down this lost magic is very almost warm and cozy feeling. It's such a fun trope that I personally love, and because I complain about it a lot, let's just point out that the cover is an illustration in the style of older fantasy books, and it looks great. I know a lot of the more modern books lean in more towards the typography, minimalist style, but this just perfectly fits this story from what the synopsis sounds like. And Broken Binding are doing a special edition of this book as well, so if that's something you're interested in, I will also link that in the description below. Also, coming out on the 24th of June, we have Heart of the Wyrdwood, the third book in the Forsaken trilogy by R.J. Barker. I think I've had both book 1 and book 2 in new release videos, but also they've been years apart. What I will say is that the first book, Gods of the Wyrdwood, the tagline on Amazon is Avatar meets June on shrooms. 5 stars. Which is a great tagline. That's a very funny review. Because we have already gone over the synopsis for book 1, I think, twice already in new release videos, I'm just going to read this very short little paragraph. From one of the most original voices in fantasy comes the start of an epic trilogy of vicious outlaws, warring deities, and an evil empire. Set within the bounds of a forest, out of the darkest folklore, the gods of the Wyrdwood have awoken, and their time has come. This is the one that's been on my TBR since that first book came out. It is just one that just seems to keep sliding off, but all the reviews have been really positive. It sounds really good, and also dark, creepy forest with sort of folklore style just sounds really good. And I must say, Avatar meets June on shrooms has made me want to pick up even more. And last but not least, also coming out on the 24th of June, we have Only a Grave Will Do. This is the third book in the Malitu series, the first being No Heart for a Thief. So because this is a book 3, we will go over the synopsis for book 1, and then you'll know if you want to move on to book 2, and then to book 3. The thief, a great spirit, and her descendants have abused their ability to steal magic for centuries. When Kalo starts to hear a song of other people's magic, he must learn to hide from his people as well as the invaders. A gift or a curse, Kalo may be able to save his people from the Gausht Empire that claimed their land with this stolen magic. 18 years later, Kalo still prays to the spirits, but not out of loyalty or love. He knows better than to rely on those selfish bastards for anything. While hiding in the forest from his foolish acts of rebellion, he encounters a girl, Taean, being pursued by 2 soldiers of the Empire. Against his better judgment, he risks facing the consequences of his past to intervene. When Taean attempts to run off, seeking vengeance for her family, he offers to train her to wield magic and a blade. If he can't convince her to relinquish her need for vengeance and stave off the demons of his past, he's going to get them both killed. Another thing about this series is I just love the titles of the books. The first being No Heart for a Thief, the second No Safe Haven, and the third Only a Grave Will Do. They're just awesome titles, as well as cover art. The cover art is absolutely stunning in all 3. And over on the Discord, we will be reading A Drop of Corruption, the sequel to A Tainted Cup. I am so glad that this is what was voted in, because I've been wanting to read this since it dropped. So the fact that it's the read-along for June just has me very, very excited. Murder mystery, Tainted Cup was one of my favourite reads of last year. I can see this series becoming a favourite of all time. Heard the booktubes even better from multiple sources. So if you've read the Tainted Cup, or if you can read it really, really quickly, come and join us over on the Discord, and the link for that is in the description below. But thank you very much for watching. Outro.